The air hung heavy and cold over Blackwood Bridge, a monolithic steel skeleton that had spanned the churning waters of the Havenwood River for nearly a century. Its rust-colored girders, perpetually damp with river mist, seemed to sigh with the weight of forgotten time, a silent sentinel watching over the community it connected. Below, the river, usually a placid, dark ribbon, was swollen and turbulent from recent rains, its surface a mosaic of swirling eddies and treacherous currents. It was a place of stark, imposing beauty, but also one steeped in a chilling local legend, a story whispered in hushed tones about the 5 souls it had claimed 15 years prior. On this particular Tuesday morning, the usual drone of traffic was punctuated by the rhythmic clang of maintenance crews working high above the water. They were performing a routine structural inspection, a task as mundane as the bridge itself was grand. But the monotony was shattered not by a failing rivet or a loose cable, but by a discovery far more sinister. Deep beneath the bridge's central support, in a cavity carved out by relentless erosion and hidden from casual view, a worker's gloved hand brushed against something unexpected. It wasn't rock, nor debris, nor the usual detritus of the riverbed. It was smooth, cold, and unnervingly distinct. A gasp, then a shout echoed across the water, carrying a primal fear that cut through the morning chill. What they had found was a dive watch, remarkably preserved, its luminescence still faintly visible beneath a layer of silt and algae. But it wasn't just any dive watch. It was a specific model, a limited edition, known only to a tight-knit community of extreme divers. And etched into its back, almost imperceptibly, were 3 initials, MR. The implications were immediate, visceral. 15 years ago, 5 experienced divers had vanished without a trace beneath these very waters, their disappearance a gaping wound in the heart of Havenwood. The watch, a silent, macabre messenger from the past, had finally surfaced. Its discovery wasn't just a clue, it was a reopening of a tomb, a chilling whisper from the abyss, promising to drag the town back into the very nightmare it had desperately tried to forget. The river, once a symbol of life and connection, now seemed to pulse with a dark, predatory energy, its depths guarding secrets far older and more terrible than anyone could have imagined. The Blackwood Bridge, a silent witness, stood ready to tell its story, piece by agonizing piece. 15 years earlier, the summer air in Havenwood had been thick with the promise of long days and warm nights, a typical season in the quiet lakeside town. The Blackwood Bridge, then as now, was a landmark, a testament to enduring engineering, but also a popular spot for thrill-seekers and, crucially, for the local diving club. Mark Reynolds, a charismatic and skilled diver, was the unofficial leader of a tight-knit group of 5. They were experienced, meticulous, and deeply passionate about exploring the hidden underwater landscapes of the Havenwood River. That fateful August morning, Mark, along with his sister Clara, and their friends David, Lena, and Ben, had geared up for what they believed would be a routine exploration of a newly discovered underwater cave system near the bridge's foundations. They were all smiles, sharing jokes, their dive bags heavy with equipment, their spirits light with adventure. The alarm was raised hours later when their boat, usually bustling with activity after a dive, remained eerily still, its anchor chain swaying gently in the current, but no divers surfacing. Initial searches were frantic, then desperate. The local sheriff's department, overwhelmed and under-equipped, called in state resources. Helicopters crisscrossed the sky, sonar boats swept the riverbed, and volunteer divers braved the treacherous currents. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. No bodies were ever recovered. No equipment was found beyond a single deflated buoy. It was as if the river had simply swallowed them whole, leaving behind only an agonizing void. The official report concluded with the dreaded phrase, "presumed drowned, bodies unrecoverable." But for the families, and for many in Havenwood, that explanation felt hollow, incomplete. Among the young officers assigned to the case was a fresh-faced recruit named Sarah Jenkins. She remembered the raw grief in the eyes of the families, the haunted silence that descended upon Havenwood, and the chilling feeling that something profoundly wrong had occurred, something the river refused to reveal. The case, labeled the Blackwood Five, became an open wound, a constant reminder of the unexplained, fueling whispers of dark currents, ancient curses, and even foul play. Sarah, then just starting her career, had been deeply affected by the sheer emptiness of the outcome. The faces of the missing, particularly Clara Hayes, Mark Reynolds' sister, were seared into her memory. The unresolved nature of it all gnawed at her, a silent promise to herself that one day, perhaps, the river would yield its secrets. The Blackwood Bridge, a silent witness, had become a monument not just to engineering, but to enduring mystery, a place where the living looked out over the water and felt the cold breath of the unreturned. The dive watch, now carefully catalogued and placed under forensic lights, pulsed with a renewed urgency, a beacon in the cold case files. Detective Sarah Jenkins, now a seasoned investigator, felt a familiar knot tighten in her stomach. The initials, MR, confirmed what she had instinctively known. This belonged to Mark Reynolds. It was a tangible link, the first in 15 years, to the Blackwood Five. The watch, remarkably intact despite its long submersion, showed no signs of violent impact or struggle. Only the slow, inexorable march of time etched into its casing. Its discovery wasn't just a piece of evidence, it was a ghost reaching out from the depths. The news spread like wildfire through Havenwood, reigniting old pains and dormant fears. Emily Hayes, a sharp, tenacious investigative journalist, felt the shock with a particular intensity. Clara Hayes, one of the vanished divers, was her older sister. Emily had been a teenager then, her world shattered by Clara's disappearance. For years, she had channeled her grief into her work, relentlessly pursuing stories of injustice and unsolved mysteries, always with a silent hope that one day a clue to Clara's fate would emerge. The phone call from Detective Jenkins was both a jolt of adrenaline and a punch to the gut. Hope, a dangerous emotion in cases like this, flickered to life, mingled with a renewed, agonizing uncertainty. She knew, with a journalist's instinct and a sister's heart, that she had to be part of this. To assist with the complex underwater recovery, Detective Jenkins brought in Dr. Arthur Finch, an internationally renowned expert in marine archaeology and underwater forensics. Finch was a man of science, precise and methodical, his skepticism a shield against the emotional turbulence that often surrounded such cases. He arrived with an array of cutting-edge equipment and a detached, analytical gaze, his focus solely on the physics of water, currents, and decay. He viewed the Blackwood Bridge as a complex hydrological puzzle, not a place of ghosts. The river is a powerful conservator, he stated, examining the watch with a magnifying glass, but also a relentless destroyer. For this to surface now in this condition, it suggests specific circumstances. His initial assessment, however, offered no easy answers. The watch's location deep within a previously unmapped cavity was puzzling. It wasn't where a body, or even a piece of equipment, would naturally settle after a drowning. It suggested placement, or perhaps a desperate final act. The first revelation was not a clear answer, but a deeper, more unsettling question, pulling them into the murky depths of a mystery that had only just begun to truly reveal itself. The decision was made to launch a full-scale, specialized dive operation, focusing on the area around the bridge's central support and the newly discovered cavity. Dr. Finch, with his team of highly trained technical divers, began the arduous task of mapping the riverbed. The Blackwood River, however, was not an easy mistress. Its currents were notoriously unpredictable, its depths shrouded in near-total darkness, and visibility often reduced to mere inches by the churning silt. The bridge itself, with its complex lattice of submerged girders and concrete foundations, created a labyrinthine environment, a dangerous maze that swallowed light and sound. Each dive was a calculated risk, a descent into an alien world where the pressure was immense and the cold seeped into the bones. As Finch's team meticulously explored the underwater landscape, Detective Jenkins immersed herself in the cold case files, poring over every report, every witness statement, every discarded theory from 15 years ago. She found inconsistencies, small details that had been overlooked or dismissed in the initial chaos. A fisherman who reported seeing a strange, unmarked boat near the bridge the morning of the disappearance, his account filed away as unreliable. A local eccentric who spoke of lights in the water in the weeks leading up to the incident, his claims attributed to an overactive imagination. Jenkins felt a growing unease. The original investigation, while thorough for its time, had been hampered by a lack of resources and a prevailing assumption of accidental drowning. Meanwhile, Emily Hayes, driven by a personal quest for truth, began her own journalistic investigation. She interviewed the remaining family members of the vanished divers, their grief still palpable, their stories a tapestry of unanswered questions. She dug into Havenwood's archives, uncovering old newspaper clippings, town records, and even local folklore surrounding the Blackwood Bridge. The bridge, she discovered, had a darker history than most realized. There were whispers of old industrial accidents during its construction, of strange occurrences reported by workers, and even a local legend about a river spirit that claimed lives. Emily's relentless pursuit led her to an elderly retired bridge engineer, Arthur Vance, who had worked on a major structural repair project decades ago. Vance, initially reluctant, eventually shared a crucial detail. During the repairs, they had discovered a series of hidden man-made chambers within the bridge's deepest foundations, designed for structural access, but long since sealed off and forgotten. These weren't natural cavities, they were deliberate, concealed spaces, a secret architecture beneath the river. The revelation sent a shiver down Emily's spine. Could one of these forgotten chambers be connected to the diver's disappearance? The river, it seemed, was not just holding secrets, but actively guarding them, and the Blackwood Bridge was far more than just a crossing. The new information about the hidden chambers within the bridge's foundations was a game-changer. Dr. Finch, initially skeptical, reviewed the old blueprints Emily had unearthed. His scientific mind, usually focused on natural phenomena, now grappled with the implications of deliberate, concealed spaces. He immediately redirected his dive team, instructing them to focus their sonar and ROV, remotely operated vehicle scans, on the specific areas Vance had indicated. The river, already a formidable adversary, seemed to resist their efforts with renewed vigor, its currents pulling at their lines, its murk obscuring their vision. Days later, a muffled shout erupted from the dive boat's communication system. "We have something, a structural anomaly. It's a sealed entrance, just like the old man said." The ROV's camera, battling the gloom, showed a faint outline, a heavy, reinforced metal hatch, camouflaged by decades of sediment and growth, blending almost perfectly with the concrete foundation. It was an entrance, not to a natural cave, but to something man-made, something hidden. The discovery sent a jolt through everyone on deck. This wasn't an accident. This was deliberate. Detective Jenkins felt a cold dread settle in her stomach. This changed everything. The Blackwood Five hadn't simply drowned, they had vanished into a hidden structure. But why? And how? The hatch was too heavy, too well concealed to have been opened by chance. It implied knowledge, intent. As Dr. Finch's team prepared for a dangerous attempt to breach the hatch, Emily Hayes's mind raced. Her sister, Clara, had been an expert diver, meticulous in her planning. Would she have entered such a structure willingly, without prior knowledge? Or had they been lured, trapped? The breach was slow, agonizing work. The divers used specialized tools, fighting against the immense pressure and the river's relentless pull. Finally, with a groan of tortured metal, the hatch gave way, revealing a dark, flooded tunnel leading into the heart of the bridge's foundation. The ROV was sent in first, its powerful lights cutting through the inky blackness. What it revealed was not a simple access tunnel, but a series of interconnected chambers, surprisingly spacious and eerily preserved. And then, the camera focused on something that made the air catch in everyone's throats. A dive tank propped against a wall, its gauge reading empty, and next to it, a single waterlogged dive log, its cover bearing the faded, unmistakable initials, C.H. Clara Hayes. The climax hit with the force of a tidal wave. The dive log, carefully retrieved and painstakingly dried, became the key. Its final entries, scrawled in Clara's familiar hand, painted a chilling picture. She wrote of an anonymous tip, a mysterious message hinting at an incredible, undiscovered phenomenon within the Blackwood Bridge's foundations, a unique geological formation, or perhaps even an ancient artifact, accessible only by a secret entrance. The message had promised a discovery that would change their understanding of the river, a once-in-a-lifetime find. It was a lure, perfectly crafted to appeal to their adventurous spirits. The entries detailed their excitement, their cautious approach, and finally, their successful entry into the hidden chambers. But the final entry was different. It was frantic, barely legible. "We're inside. It's not what we expected. There's something else here, not natural. We're trapped. The current. It's too strong to get back to the hatch. Mark is trying to find another way out. The air is running low. We're not alone." The words sent a cold dread through Jenkins, Finch, and Emily. Not alone, what did that mean? The log ended abruptly, a single smudged fingerprint next to the last word. Dr. Finch, his scientific detachment shattered, re-examined the chambers with a new intensity. The dive team, now inside the structure, reported strange currents within the seemingly still water, almost as if the chambers themselves were breathing. They found evidence of a rudimentary, makeshift barrier constructed from debris and old metal, blocking a narrow passage at the far end of the largest chamber. It wasn't designed to keep something out, but to keep something in. And then they found it. A series of intricate, almost ritualistic carvings etched into the stone walls of the innermost chamber, unlike anything native to the region. They depicted strange, humanoid figures, their eyes wide and empty, seemingly worshipping a dark, swirling vortex. This wasn't a geological phenomenon. It was a site of ancient, disturbing significance. The twist was horrifyingly clear. The divers hadn't been lured to a discovery, they had been lured to a trap. The unmarked boat the fishermen saw, the lights in the water the eccentric described, they weren't random. Someone had known about these chambers, had perhaps even maintained them, and had used them for a purpose far more sinister than exploration. The Blackwood Five had stumbled upon something ancient, something protected, something that did not want to be disturbed. The "not alone" entry in Clara's log now took on a terrifying new meaning. The true horror wasn't just that they had vanished, but what they had encountered in the suffocating darkness, and who had orchestrated their demise to protect a secret buried for centuries beneath the Blackwood Bridge. The air in the makeshift command center grew heavy with a palpable sense of terror, the river's cold breath now feeling like a vengeful whisper. The revelation of the hidden chambers and Clara's chilling log entries left the team reeling. They now understood that the divers hadn't simply drowned. They had been drawn into a meticulously planned trap, a sacrifice to a secret far older and darker than anyone in Havenwood could have imagined. The makeshift barrier, the strange carvings, the desperate final words, it all pointed to a deliberate act. A calculated effort to conceal whatever lay within those submerged chambers. The Blackwood Bridge, once a symbol of connection, now stood as a monument to a profound and terrifying unknown. Detective Jenkins, her face etched with exhaustion and grim determination, ordered the full documentation of the chambers. While the bodies of the divers remained elusive, The evidence within the bridge's foundations provided a partial, albeit horrifying, answer to their disappearance. The lack of struggle, the pristine condition of the watch, the dive log, it all suggested a rapid, overwhelming event. Perhaps a sudden, powerful current generated by the deliberate opening of a hidden sluice gate, or an encounter with something truly inexplicable, leaving them no chance to escape. The "not alone" entry continued to haunt them, a lingering question mark over the nature of their final moments. Emily Hayes, clutching her sister's waterlogged dive log, felt a strange mix of profound grief and a fierce, cold sense of purpose. The hope of finding Clara alive was gone, replaced by the crushing weight of her final terror. But the truth, however macabre, was finally beginning to surface. Her sister hadn't just vanished. She had been a victim of a dark secret, a forgotten history that the river had guarded with deadly efficiency. The journalistic instinct now merged with a personal crusade to ensure that Clara and the others did not die in vain, that the truth, however unsettling, would be fully revealed. Dr. Finch, his scientific worldview profoundly shaken, oversaw the meticulous collection of samples from the chambers. He spoke of the unique hydrological conditions, the strange mineral deposits, and the undeniable evidence of human intervention alongside the ancient carvings. He theorized about the possibility of a powerful, localized current system that could be activated, trapping anyone inside. But the who and why remained shrouded in the river's depths. Who knew about these chambers? Who had maintained them? And what was the true significance of those unsettling carvings? The initial discovery of Mark Reynolds' watch had been a key, but it had only opened a door to a much larger, more terrifying labyrinth. As the sun began to set, casting long, eerie shadows across the Blackwood Bridge, the team stood on the riverbank, looking out at the churning water. The bridge, silent and imposing, seemed to hold its secrets even tighter. The case of the Blackwood Five was no longer just a cold case. It was an active investigation into a crime that spanned centuries, a mystery that defied easy explanation. The divers had found something, or something had found them, in the dark heart of the bridge. And whatever it was, it had been protected with deadly intent. The river had given up a piece of its truth, but the full story, the ultimate horror, still lay submerged, waiting for someone brave enough to truly understand the depths of the Blackwood Bridge's enigma. If you've been captivated by the chilling secrets of the Blackwood Bridge and the enduring mystery of the vanished divers, please take a moment to like this video, share your theories in the comments below, and subscribe to Vanished Files for more immersive journeys into the unexplained. Your support helps us continue to bring these stories to light.